Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick. Welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on Earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality, soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guest on this week's episode is Paula Hurlock from Wellness Experience Jamaica. Paula's background is in geology, and she has always had an understanding of nature's healing powers. Her own experience of recovery from illness has revealed the connection of positive life force energy and wellness. During our conversation, we discussed the different experiences people had during the pandemic. Why did some succumb to fear, depression and infection, while others thrived, discovering and expressing their truth and creativity? What makes people more susceptible to propaganda? And what is humanity's greater awakening on a spiritual and consciousness level? Paula also talks about the I Am Light Jamaica global meditation that's taking place on the 20th of March 2022 and the significance and purpose of this event. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel you're most her?
I feel the most her at the point of awakening in the mornings. Just before the sun rises is where the Schumann's resonance, which is the earth's resonance, is most potent because there's very little other sound around. So you can literally feel the sound of silence, which is a frequency, as you know. And so when I raise up in the morning, I will take the time to meditate in that silence, in the darkness, where I can hear that sound. And you know what they say when you wake up, your brain waves are just coming out of the sleep frequency, and it is almost perfectly aligned to the Schumann's resonance, the resonance of the earth. And so I feel most aligned at that time of the day because truly I am aligned. So you know what they say, the frequency of the brain waves is about the same as the frequency of the heart waves. So imagine waking up in the morning and doing your meditation, knowing that your brain waves, your heart waves, and the frequency of the earth are all the same. That's complete resonance. And so that's, for me, the time of greatest resonance in the day for me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And if before we go into more conversation, Paula, can you just tell people a little bit about you and how you moved into the work that you're doing now?
Right. So I'm actually a geologist, believe that or not, but it's very interesting because since I was a child, I was just drawn to stones and crystals and just the fascination with it. Of course, Jamaica is all limestone, so you know all those stones just look like chalk. So that didn't it wasn't very exciting, but I was still drawn to the fact that crystals come from the earth from a very early age, and I would just collect. And so when I got to university, that's what I chose to do. But what it did was prepare me for this whole concept of sacred geometry and crystalline light, being, made of the same sort of sacred geometry. And it also helped me to understand that the reasons why crystals heal us is because crystals hold so much information from the earth's memory. Crystals take millions of years to form in the belly of the earth, And so it holds in it a lot of vibration, a lot of frequency, and a lot of codes that are very intelligent. They say that crystals are sentient, so they actually know what they're here to do. So when you go into a crystal shop and you see a crystal and you're like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. The crystal knew from before, okay, she's going to buy me. I'm going to do some work on her. Yeah. But what my degree in geology did was prepare me to work in the environment. And so I worked in forest conservation and poverty reduction for many years, creating alternative livelihood. And so it was always about how can I help people to be the best version of themselves using the natural resources around them. I live in Jamaica. Jamaica is a developing country. And so, everything was around sugar and banana. And if you're not working on a farm, you're working in tourism. So it was always a very interesting place. There's a lot of, poverty. There's a lot of disempowerment because we are coming from a colonial background. And so we've just been, independent for 60 years this year. And, we have lots of issues to iron out, but at the same time, we are a strong, resilient people that are very divinely connected. And so, that's comforting. What brought me into wellness and spirituality, however, was illness. And I don't know about anybody else, but that usually gets everyone to, start to think about their mortality, think about why something is happening to them, and so on. So I got ill in between 2010 and 2012. I had serious fibroids, severe anemia, and I was not able to make blood. We found out after that my body simply does not absorb B12. And so I couldn't make iron. I started to exhibit, depression, although I've never been depressed, but mine was brought on by the chemical deficiency, in B12. In the end, I tried to eat clean to detox the body so that the fibroids wouldn't grow. But that, it didn't work. And I was bleeding. I bled out to like a hemoglobin of 3. I had to be hospitalized, transfused, and then they did surgery. And since then, I've been just on a campaign of getting the body back on track, getting the liver cleaned up, getting the kidneys, the gallbladder, the pancreas, all of those balanced. And then I started to learn the connection between resonance or energy or life force and health. What happens is that when you become unwell, it's because the life force is not flowing through your body the way it should. You have blockages in different points within your body. Usually, those blockages are related to emotional trauma. We don't realize that we hold emotional trauma in our body, different parts of the body, and that leads to the dis-ease or the imbalance in our body. So that's really what brought me here. And then having to connect the dots between nutrition, breath, meditation, and spirituality, our connection to the divine. So, and as you can see, I was working with the earth, and understanding the earth, as a geologist, seismicity, how crystals are formed, how water works, everything. So it gave me a better understanding of the body, because the body is just like the earth. Mother Earth is the macro and we are the micro. Same elements: fire, water, earth, air. We have those also in our bodies. So
Perfect
yes.
answer. Thank you. Thank you. And we can lead on from there really as well. We've been talking about health and wellness and spirituality and how deep embedded trauma affects the body, because we are, depending on your viewpoint, have experienced or are still experiencing a health crisis in the world. And I think when we spoke before, one of the things that we mentioned was it was very interesting as to who felt that they were affected by what they were told they were affected by, So there was this rollout of the fear campaign, of 2 years of fear campaign. And we experienced this together, in that I can't say that I knew anybody who succumbed to that.
Right.
But then if I spoke to people who knew someone, they knew everybody who had. So it was like very clear that if you bought into it, somehow it was going to get you, And then also if you'd bought into it, then, you were told to go and take a test for this, go and take a test for that. So then, the test will show up, however many times, because that in itself was a lottery. And the information has always been there, and now is more prevalent, that you're not going to get an accurate reading anyway. But if you're looking for something and you believe you got something, then you got the something.
It all comes down to resonance, Carol.
Right.
It's resonance. So some people bought into it. They resonated with the narrative. And so they created that reality for themselves. Mm-hmm. And then there was another group that did not resonate with that narrative that was being pushed. And so they created a reality for themselves of health and wellness and ease and grace. Right. Because I have to say that some people during the pandemic experienced absolute hell. They had job losses, they had illness, they had loneliness, they had sadness, they had depression, they had mental issues, right? And then there's other people who are just like very happy for the break. They made breakthroughs. They discovered new talents. They were able to unpack new innovations that they could generate an income from. They started blogs. They started vlogs. They started podcasts. They authored books. They became artists. It was amazing. So you can see the contrast, and the contrast is all related to the vibration that they chose, the resonance that they chose to align with. And it's so clear. It is so clear. I mean, at first I was like looking at, because like everyone else, when this pandemic struck, we were curious. I would say I was fearful for about a week because of all the unknowns. But the more I studied it and looked at the correlations and the commonalities, it was very clear that there were specific groups that were targeted, and they shared that with us. And you could see it. But among the persons in the youthful age range that became affected, I found that they were mostly in the church or very deep into their jobs and their connection to their jobs. So what I found was that the more indoctrinated the person is the easier it was for them to be caught up in the narrative, right? And the easier it was for them to create the reality of illness for themselves and in their reality. That's what I observed.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. And to add on to that, one, there was that thing that I think it's the more that people relied on the state for their living. So whether it was financially, which is a lot of people, but then also the state gave them their purpose. The state gave them their, they had all of these degrees. They had, the state told them that they were clever. The state rewarded them by giving them a salary and a job. And also they had a status that everyone admired and thought, and aspired to. So you can't then, because the state has rewarded you so well for towing the line and doing that life the way the state has told you, you're not going to mistrust state, because your life is cushy as a result of following the way that state has told you to live. Whereas, me and whoever else has just been like, I don't know, man. It's always been that, always kind of ducking and weaving and finding a way of making things work. And of course, it never balances up to what's right and what's good. So you're always the black sheep, you're always the free spirit, you always get called all of these things, which you realize when you really dig into the people that were so wedded to who are still so wedded to the state and believe that anything that the state tells them, even when their eyes and their hearts are saying, hang on a minute, but the state is rewarding you so well, why are you going to question it? You will say, why would they lie? And we're saying, well, why would they not? Why would they not? Why do you think they're doing it for you? But for me, it always just looked so bizarre from the beginning. It was, would have the Prime Minister come on and talk about this thing that was happening. And it just felt so surreal. It felt like, I don't watch TV that much, rarely ever. So when I do watch it, it always feels surreal. It always feels like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And what had happened was, and because I've always been a conspiracy theorist, there's always people that I've been aware of and listened to them that were very early on
telling us
about this thing. But also what had happened in the UK that very few people knew about was we went into lockdown, I think it was the 23rd of March. And on the 19th of March, and I was aware of it on the 19th of March, they had gone onto their own government website and downgraded this. Yeah, they had downgraded it to a non-infectious, I can't remember the terminology, but it's there in black and white on their own website. So they had already gone onto their website and gone, there's nothing to be scared of. So then it just didn't make sense that when we went into this lockdown thing, so you're like, okay, so it's nothing to be scared of. We're doing this lockdown game. Let's do it for a month or so. 2 years later, so very early on, I'm like, why is everyone buying this? Why can't you see it? It's a lie. But people didn't, because they were in the trance of this altered reality. And then it became very apparent that you'd be walking next to people, and they're in a different world and you're in a different world. And there was a Bible verse or a chapter that I went into the other day. I wanted to read the whole thing, which is, I think it's Matthew 24. And it's about where two people can be in the field and one will be taken and one will stay. It's about this ascension and the end of days. And I know people have their thoughts about the Bible, but just kind of take the religion out of it and look what this is saying. It's like two people are right by each other, but they're both experiencing a different reality. So you've got someone that's taken, and they could be taken to, they're taken that way and you're taken that way. You're still next to each other. And this ascension is gradually happening as people are being pulled in one direction because of their belief and the reality that they're creating. And others are really embedded in the density of the lies and the pantomime and just can't see it. Even when you're bringing facts and information, it's just they cannot break the spell. It's been astounding to watch.
It has been. I was particularly frustrated with my family, because you love your family.
Right.
You know your family. And you consider your family to be as smart as or smarter than you, based on what society has rewarded them with. So here you are, the unsuccessful one, with your theories,
right?
So you that go against the grain of the societal structures. So immediately you get put into the box of crazy, lunatic, conspiracy theorist.
Right.
So you no longer have any validity. You can't prove your sources because they're not evidence-based science.
Right.
And so nobody's listening. And this includes the journalists, academia, government, private sector, public sector, and your health ministry.
Right.
It's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
You're not going to win.
Never.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But we were able to see some kind of gains in our country because just a handful of people decided to stay true to what they believe and to continue to share it and continue to speak about it, so that the uneducated ones who are going purely off of their gut were eventually vindicated by the data that rolled out after 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what unfolded. And I suspect that is what unfolded all over the planet. A small handful of people holding true and sharing as best as they can the truth and the information that they knew to be true. And eventually people heard it and started to listen, and eventually the truth itself, because you know they say, and they say this in the Bible as well, anything done in the dark must come to light. So everything started to come to light. Now, I would hasten to say that these things came to light because there were also another set of people who were working on anchoring in the light. The light as in the light of goodness and truth and cosmic and divine power. And because there was a critical mass of people doing that, they were able to shift the potential timeline from one of complete darkness and destruction to one where there's still a glimmer of hope for the critical mass of people who believed that they could shift the timeline, as well as the people who were the victims but knew deep down that there was hope. You understand what I'm saying happened? Yeah. Because it did happen. There were these people, remember, all these people were being muzzled, were being shadow banned, were being blocked. Their messages were, they were also being canceled because, you know, there is a significant cancel culture in especially the medical field. And if you go against the grain of what is being promulgated, then you are immediately canceled. You are no longer valid. Yeah, you're a Nobel Peace Prize awardee. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You are crazy. You developed the PCR test. No, but you are crazy. And
we'll take you out as well.
Yes, and I was just amazed at how they did this, and nobody could see, the masses couldn't see the play.
Yeah,
you know.
But with that, you know what it is, and I was speaking it's a conversation I have almost every day, where we're like, how is it possible? How is it possible? But when it takes a lot to do what we do energetically, but also cognitively as well. Because a lot of the time when you're looking for truth, there are people that are put in the way of truth as well. So it sounds like they're telling you the truth because they're telling you the opposite of the main narrative, or they're telling you something different from the same narrative. And like the like the Pied Piper, they will lead you a merry dance and it feels good and it's free and it's so far of look at all those people over there, the sheep, they're falling for it until you get to the point where you realize this person's led you down a dead end as well. So then you have to like roll back, because in order for them to pull you away from the main narrative, they would have had to given you a percentage of truth in order for you to go there anyway. And it's for you to like work out, okay, how much of what they were saying was truth, and then where did they peel off, and then go again. And that takes a lot of work mentally for you to be, it's almost like spinning plates. It takes a lot of work for you to always keep moving and then be prepared to switch and admit that you were wrong. That's hard for people.
But that's beautiful. The way you've described it is beautiful. But one of the things I say to people all the time, always trust your intuition and develop that power of discernment. And I find that, if you are meditating and going into the silence and really spending the time to cultivate your spiritual power, then that discernment becomes even easier. It doesn't become, it's no longer work. You'll just know.
Yeah.
And then if you trust yourself enough, you'll know that whatever you know, it's the truth, because your intuition is something that you need to trust. We've been literally taught to disregard our intuition.
Imagine. And
over the last, few years, it's come back into the mainstream, especially into spirituality, where they say, trust your gut. Your gut is your second brain. Your gut is one of your brains. It's directly connected to the vagus nerve, which is like the central nerve of the body. It knows everything. So trust it. When you have a gut feeling, go with it. So I think a lot of people trusted their guts. Those are the ones that got a little piece of information and just decided to continue searching and searching and searching. And then they found the root of the problem, and they could find, they followed the terminology used over the last 2 years was follow the money.
Right. The easiest one.
Everybody found what they needed to find by doing that.
Yeah.
So, kudos to those people who followed their guts and it led them to the truth, and then they shared that truth, no matter what, even knowing that they would be at risk, physically, because of how, this thing operates. If you look like you're going to create too much of a stir, they will want to get rid of you.
Exactly.
So kudos to the people who, against all those odds, still put their life on the line to share the truth with the masses, in the hopes that they would look at what's going on and course correct.
It made a difference. It made a difference. And sometimes it feels hard, even in our small way when we're doing it, we're like, is anybody listening? Does anyone hear? Is like, or is it worth it? But it's always a thing to say, it's always worth it, because imagine if all of us, whether we've got tens of thousands of people on our social media accounts or just 10, if we didn't say anything, it wouldn't drop, it wouldn't put anything out there. If everyone stayed silent and just went along with it, we would be in a different space right now, and we wouldn't be happy about it at all. So even though it still feels like there's still a ways to go, we're not out of it by any stretch, but at least we can, like, more people see, and more people have woken up in the past 2 years than has ever been in any time, and a lot of people who were dependent on the state, in terms of dependent on the state for their career, their ego, their status, everything, when they actually started to pull away from that. And I think it's been harder for them to really kind of like step away and realize that they gave their life and their trust and their belief in the system that kind of served them, or looked like it was serving them, but all it was doing was actually buying their trust, and then just keeping them dumbed down and complacent and and obedient to whatever the state said. And especially, I mean, I want to ask you about how it figures out culturally. What I've seen, and I've always, I'm British born. My family is Jamaican. So to see that we've always been given a sense of the upper hand in Britain, as tiny as that nation is. In comparison to some of the monsters around the world, Britain has always been this thing. Britain has always had the upper hand. Britain has always had an opinion about every other culture that, we're British and we're British and they do that, but they're that, and it's always given you, it's always pointed the finger. Whereas when you start to really dig down, especially seeing how Britain has just turned in my eyes over the past 2 years, a lot of it, and a great amount of it is projection. And what they're going around and accusing other nations of being is actually just kind of deflecting on the way they are of that, the way they are of that themselves. But it's all painted behind this, this niceness and this poise and this stiff upper lip, and it's anything but that. And when I really started to see it and how it revealed itself to me, I'm like, man, we, especially as first and second generation, we kind of aspire to kind of get involved in the stream of things, and as well as you do, as well as you speak, and as well as you do at school, and even if you fit into the structure, the societal structure, you're never not aware, because there will always be that class system, even though it's not as prevalent,
well defined, not as well defined,
as it has been in previous times, especially if you look into culture and arts and things like that, and books where you always kind of get there's the upper class, the middle class, and the lower. So the lines have blurred over time, but the lines haven't blurred really. It's still there. It's just kind of behind the scenes a little bit. So I can see it was very much a class thing as well of who fell for this.
Oh, absolutely. In Jamaica, it was very interesting because, and this was a strategy that they rolled out internationally, because, there was a playbook giving each country specific instructions of what laws to bring out to enact the emergency acts, who to target first. In the US, what they did was they took all the movie stars and all the sports and political figures and got them vaccinated on camera and say, hey, look, I'm getting my vaccine. They did that in Jamaica. But the beautiful thing about what happened, which says it's not really beautiful, but it backfired on them, is that the same persons who were on camera taking the vaccine and saying, listen, go out and get it within a couple of days or weeks, they passed, and that just reinforced the hesitancy even more. It happened in Jamaica with a very prominent journalist.
Right.
The only journalist that was questioning the lockdowns. He was encouraged to do his vaccine, and he died. And, it was very shocking for the nation because he was well loved. And it was a difficult one for our country, the government to manage, because the very thing that people are already suspicious about, they just got evidence right up front that this is what happened. So it was a lot of damage control around that. But, I think the universe has a way of ensuring that the truth comes to light. Right. And some of those prominent persons that, people could show the direct correlation with, served to reinforce this niggling suspicion that many people had that this thing is not really good, So, very interesting how, how, for example, the developing countries responded to this versus the developed countries. And so that same hierarchy of the most, prominent persons in society doing this and the most developed countries doing this. You know, I think that's what was used.
Yeah.
So in Jamaica, that played out very much so. Although somewhere in the middle of last year, a study came out showing that the hesitancy across the globe was highest in the most educated among the population, and it was also highest in the least educated. So the extremities, the top and the bottom were hesitant, and the middle, you know, the middle of the road. When I say the middle, the educated, middle class, aspiring to be X or Y or Z, those were the ones who took the whole thing lock, stock, and barrel.
Yeah. I can see that in just experiences of people who were just like so embedded in the facts of the matter, because they, like you say, they're so the middle class in this country, as they call them, are so wedded to royalty, to establishment, to media, to government, to the state, you know, because the state gives them all of this thing, and it's worked out really well for them. And then you have the lower class, the uneducated, or people that have just kind of skirted their own way, who've kind of just had a mistrust, because one, the state has always thought of them as ridiculous, you know, and has always kind of insulted them and tolerated them. So when that person, someone is being given you that treatment, then is kind of trying to convince you of something, you're like, don't trust you anyway. Why am I going to trust you now? And then you've got the aristocracy and the level above middle class that it's usually them that are kind of running things anyway, you know what I mean? Or even above that, they have the independent means as to not have to bother to be part of that system anyway. So it's just like, well, you know, that's for the plebs, and like let them play that low life game. We're not part of that system. You know, we have our own. We're here, but we're not really part of your game. And I think what is difficult for those in the middle and the middle class to really take on board is they are the target. They're the ones that have been they are the target. They want you gone, you know. It's for much as what they can't comprehend of that is like, you are the target. You who are like blindly following along and agreeing with everything and defending it and not wanting to believe that they could be telling you anything other than fact, is they want you gone. It's too much for people to comprehend, really, but those are the facts. And especially then, if you start to look outside of what the mainstream is telling you and listen to what your friendly conspiracy theorist is telling you about where this is all supposed to be going, they want to eradicate you. They want your house. They want your business. They want your money.
Your beautiful North Coast property, waterfront property. Yeah.
Whatever you've got, you ain't going to have it. And they're coming for it. And then your life.
Yeah. In Jamaica, it was very interesting because, you know, we live on every line of the Bible. And what came to mind during this time was the meek shall inherit the earth.
Right.
And I thought to myself, you know what, all these, you know, the opulent that have fallen for this thing, hook, line, and sinker, they may not be around to enjoy all of this physical wealth that they've created.
Right.
You know, which is really sad because a lot of them are people we love, people that we've grown up with, you know. The other thing that comes to mind, and this is something that came out of, you know, one of the memes that I saw, you know, out of North America, and they have firsthand experience as people of color that have been experimented on. And so they have a well-founded distrust, you know, with the Tuskegee experiment and a couple of other experiments like that, where they were deceived and told one thing while another thing was happening.
Yeah.
The statement was, your oppressor has always oppressed you.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you now think that your oppressor is suddenly going to be wanting to help you and to want what's best for you? How? That would be an overnight thing.
Yeah.
How can the people who have been, against you for centuries, have done you wrong for centuries, suddenly want to do right by you?
To what benefit? No one's asking questions. But the thing they did and the twist that they did, and I think some people fell for it as well in America. And I saw the way they did it in the UK. So in the UK, what they did is they got a lot of Black, and they're people that I know, actors, musicians, influencers that had like big careers that were household names, to come out and specifically, sit and like look into the camera and speak to them about, come on now, this is a different thing. You do it for you do it for auntie, you do it for, you know what I mean? They even like slip into patois a little bit just to kind of warm you up and like they're being earnest. And then what I was seeing from the States was that they were saying, well, this isn't the same as Tuskegee. Yeah. Because what happened in Tuskegee is they withheld something, and then that's what happened. Whereas here we're giving you something, so it's different in that way. But on a detail, that is true. But the thing is, the main thing about Tuskegee and this is deception.
Exactly.
And people aren't going to forget the deception. So whether it's you're deceiving me by not giving me what you're telling me, or deceiving me by giving me something that isn't what you're telling me it's deception, exactly. And I'm glad that people held strong on it. Their memory is either they don't remember history, or for some reason, they have a selective memory.
Yeah. It's very interesting though, because in my family, my sister's a medical doctor. And so all of what I was saying flew directly in the face of what her career was built on.
Of course.
So it was very unnerving. And I understand that it was unnerving. But I was just amazed at her inability to even stop and think about what was being said. But it's just like every single thing that she's built her life around and on is now being called into question. She couldn't. I couldn't be upset with her. I was disappointed, but I couldn't be upset. This is her bread and butter. They've always been right. They've always done right by the people. Why would they suddenly do wrong by the people? So it was just too far-fetched for her to be able to integrate those notions at all.
Yeah.
In terms of the private sector leadership of the country, the narrative they have is that we are doing this for the greater good. This is a public emergency. And while we understand that you don't agree, we as the leaders have to implement this to preserve the collective. So it sounded very noble, and it sounded very logical to them as leaders, But then when you say to them, listen, we have in Kingston the Coronation Market. The Coronation Market is the hub of all food in Jamaica. Every part of Jamaica carries their market produce to this market, and the exchange takes place there. People shop for all the restaurants, all the supermarkets, and so on. If everybody at Coronation Market is healthy, then we don't have a problem. And people were not dropping like flies in Coronation Market. That means we do not have a problem.
Right.
Yes, they were showing you the statistics every evening. on television. But the reality on the ground was that people were just as hale and hearty.
Yeah. Yeah. And the power of television to divert you. And like I said, you're seeing one thing with your eyes, and you reject what you're seeing with your eyes because someone, like you're saying, you're going out there and you're seeing people moving up and down next to each other day in and day out, and no one's falling down. And the same way here, you know, we didn't have suddenly, if there was this thing out there, then all of these people that it was their misfortune to not have a home and were on the streets, then surely we would have had like bodies piling up of.
The mad people were fine. The vagrants were fine.
Exactly, you know,
and they were not social distancing, and they were not sanitizing, and
no.
they were.
Imagine.
There are many things that gave us clues that what we were hearing and what was taking place in reality were two different things. I often look back at the very first 4 weeks of the lockdown and thinking to myself, here we are in paradise, being told that many people are dying in the thousands in all these parts of the world. But nothing is happening here, yet we are imprisoned and we're having to subscribe to this thing that is happening somewhere else. And I thought, this is ridiculous. All the Caribbean islands closed their borders.
Wow.
But we still had breakouts of and surges in the case numbers, which makes you wonder, was it something that was passed on in the way that they said it was, or was it something that was released into the air, through aerosol? Because if we closed our borders,
how did it get in?
And there were about 9 people from the UK here. How did it spread in the way that it did?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's a question, because in all the Caribbean islands, the same thing happened. We closed our borders for about the same time, and then we opened them, and then things just ran crazy, you know? But it's just a very interesting time. Very interesting time. My main message during the period was stop. Stop and think about what your grandmothers and your great-grandmothers used to do before there was a medical industry. What did they do? Think about how strong the Jamaican population is. What made us strong? It's the food we ate. It's the herbs that we have growing here. In Jamaica, we have over 85% of the planet's healing herbs growing here. And our forefathers knew, and they used it. First of all, my grandmother, she had 13 kids. She never went to a hospital to have them. There were no health centers for her. On the plantations, there were no health centers. Oh, if you're having a headache today, that there's a doctor there to treat you. No. They just had to do what they had to do in terms of the herbs. And they knew what to do. So when you are faced with this thing, it's an unknown, and they give you the descriptions of the symptoms, everybody in Jamaica knows, okay, if you're having upper respiratory issues, then this is the herb. If you're having female issues, then this is the herb. If you're having male issues, then these are the herbs. If you're having blood sugar issues, these are the herbs. If you're having hypertension issues, these are the herbs. So for me, I looked at the symptoms of this disease, and I found all the herbs that I knew would put the body into an optimal state to be able to deal with it, or put the body into an optimal state so that if it even came nearby, the body would be unaffected.
Right.
And so a number of the herbalists in Jamaica, they were out telling everybody, listen, get your ginger, get your turmeric, drink up your ginger and your turmeric. Get your blue vervain, drink it up. Get your sauce of peridot, that's rich in iron, melanated people need extra iron, copper, and selenium. Find out what foods naturally have those and consume more of those to boost your immune system. Get rid of the parasites. So take the bitter wood, that will get rid of the parasites. Take the papaya leaf, that will kill the parasites. So your body has less parasites. Your body is a little bit more alkaline. Your lymphatic system is not clogged. Your liver is functioning powerfully. Then even if 3 people around you get sick, you will not get it because your body is in a better position to fight. Because you've, reduced your parasite load, because you've reduced all the extra toxic load in your body. The analogy I use is, suppose you have a match and you have a bucket with gasoline. That bucket represents your body. Gasoline represents toxins in your body, parasites in your body. If you take a little spark and throw it in that bucket with the gasoline, it's going to explode. Inflammation, technically,
right,
and literally inflammation. If you have another bucket and it does not have fuel in it, has a little bit of water, it's just there, and you take the same spark and you throw that spark into that bucket with water, fizzle. It will not burst into flames because the conditions are not ideal. So that's the principle. So what we are preaching and teaching is that we need to get that body into an optimal state so that it can fight the diseases and infections, that it can take care of itself no matter what. And you do that by consuming natural foods, not processed food. Because the processed food works together with the rollout of the things that they are rolling out. It's like they create the perfect storm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Processed food, heavily toxicated bodies, indoctrinated minds, and then you roll that out, and that finishes up the job. Yeah. So as people of color, and that's the campaign for me, to ensure that people of color understand what they need to do to preserve themselves, because we are being targeted. We are being targeted. This population culling, and it's being directed at us. So it is incumbent on us to learn how to take care of ourselves. The fast food is for us. You see the price point on the fast food versus the organic, healthy food?
Right.
Right? So we need to educate ourselves, empower ourselves with knowledge so that we can take action that will secure us, secure our future. Yeah?
No, I'm with you on that as well. And you only have to look at the rollout that's happened in the United States, where they've spent, is it $60 million on paraphernalia in order for them to take the drugs? I mean, and like you say, there's going to be a specific demographic that have been targeted to need that. And then now you're just going to make it easier for them to continue to take these things. Crack pipes. I mean, come on.
Yeah. But some people will listen to us and just not see what we're saying. They'll just look at us in not disbelief, disgust. Like, seriously, you sound like an intelligent set of women, but you're talking absolute nonsense. Maybe. That's how they would do it,
Yeah, but maybe it looks like nonsense, because if you're let it look like nonsense, but we know what truth looks like. And when you put two and two together, the thing about any kind of lie is it falls down very easily with just simple questions. You know, you don't even have to be complicated about things. But when there's lies and deceptions and you just start throwing like, well, why didn't this happen? And like you're saying about there's meant to be this thing out there. So why is it that there's this busy area where people are up and down and no one's getting sick if it's there? Why is it not crossing the threshold? You know, you're just asking the questions that a child would ask. Why is just keep throwing why at it all the time. And if it's truth, it will stand up. And if it's not, it will fall down a couple of times. You know, it won't take much for it to fall down. It sounds ridiculous. Yeah, it sounds stupid to say and crazy that there's been a target to take people, but it's there. You know, you can see it, and you can see moves that are being made that target certain demographics and is not good for them. And yet people don't want to hear or don't want to believe that sometimes, like, there's parts of the world that we live in and there's people that we've given our trust and belief into that are just downright wicked. Yes. And we need to, and we need to stop acquiescing our power out to people and believing them because they turn up on TV with a suit and tie and people know their names. It's just that this is deceiving, it's like, it is. And it's sad, like you're saying about the, people that you know and family, that why are you more likely to trust somebody on the TV more so than someone that's seen you grow up, seen you at your best, seen you at your worst, cares about you? Yeah. They're not going to come to you with lies.
Right. That's what I said to my son. My son is 19. He's going to a college in the United States. He lives there. And the college said, you can't come here unless you are fully, inoculated. And I said to him, listen, I'm your mother. I do not want harm to come to you. Please sit out a year or two and let this thing,
right out.
Do not be forced or cursed to do this because you cannot undo it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, my own child said to me, Mommy, you're just a little lady from an island. Who's going to listen to you? I said, very well then, son. Very well. And he did it. But now that the truth is coming out, and I'm saying to him, see, because he plays soccer and he wanted to have a career in soccer. And so I'm showing him the videos with all the soccer players falling on the field.
Yeah.
He said, here it is. I said, you think nobody would listen to a little lady from the Caribbean islands? But this is what the little lady was telling you was going to happen. It is now happening. It's not even 2 years. And it's happening already. I couldn't convince you at the time. Can I convince you now? He's like, that happens all the time. So the cognitive dissonance is the new pandemic.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It is a denial and just it's an astounding thing to witness because you're the only sober one in a room full of drunk people. I mean, everyone's just so intoxicated and you're like, we shouldn't be drinking that drink, it's going to be the undoing of us. And unfortunately, as hard as it is to witness, it's all about souls, isn't it? Really, on the core, it's about if you're not able to find that place within yourself that is, like you say, where you're starting to trust your intuition, where you start to know what truth feels like. And it starts with truth about yourself. And most people don't know that because their truth is based on external validation. So if you're not able to validate truth within yourself and who you are, then you're going to get 100 different voices telling you who you are and what you're about. So then you'll fall for any deception and, ultimately people are paying a big price for that. And the price they're paying is potentially, at least their health, but at worst their life. That's what it's going to cost them. And it's a big lesson to learn for all of us, you know, to move forward. But before you go, I wanted to speak to you about your I Am Light event, because this is really, you know, what you're doing there in terms of like bringing light in, and
Yes.
just fully explain it, because it's a beautiful thing.
So everything that we just discussed a while ago just seemed so insurmountable last year this time. There is nothing, we don't have a budget of $420 million to do a campaign.
Right.
However, there are ones of us on the planet that have always been very divinely connected. We came in with a sole purpose specifically related to holding the light and to shining the light. We call them light workers. We call them awakened ones. We call them the watchers. We call them the guides. We are they. And I thought to myself, what can we do? We can't fight them. I can't. Even if I have 6 friends and we all think the same, we can't fight them. They will not give us a platform on the press. They will not give us space in the newspaper. They will not give us a voice to speak to the masses. What can we do? And I thought to myself, well, they say when you have a small group of people meditating, the multiplier effect is significant. So I thought to myself, why don't we have an event where we bring together those people, those light workers, those awakened ones, those persons who have been meditating for years, those persons whose eyes are open to what is happening, and we all consciously and intentionally utilize or tap into the cosmic energy of the equinox, the spring equinox, and bring in more light to our country. Now, a little known piece of information is that Jamaica is a very special place, and not because we just think we're full of ourselves and we're special. The 77th meridian runs through Jamaica. That apparently is the meridian that Columbus and all the voyagers were looking for. They wanted to capture land that was on that meridian, and Jamaica was one of those. Now, this same 77th meridian is a very powerful line or energy portal or energy line. The Pentagon is also built on the 77th meridian. So know and understand that it's not a normal line, okay? So it means that everything that we've ever done in Jamaica is special. Our music carries a specific vibration. And when we go with our music, it reverberates out into the world. Our athletes are the same, our philosophers. And when I say our philosophers, we don't have any Plato or Aristotle here. We have Marcus Garvey and we have Bob Marley, eh? These little men left Jamaica, little education, little money, little anything, but they made such a powerful impact on the international stage. Why? Because they're from this country. So I figured if we do an event that's focused on light, we do it here in Jamaica, then we are going to impact the planet powerfully. Because in the same way that our athletes are over average, our healers and our light workers are going to be above average in terms of their power. And you can see it, in Jamaica. From a religious standpoint, we have more churches per square mile than any other country in the world. I don't know if you knew that.
No, but it makes sense though.
Yeah, it's because our people are so deeply spiritual, and this is what they thought they needed to do, right? Every other person in Jamaica has spiritual gifts. Every other person. It is uncanny. It is unreal. And so, the distraction has been religion, where people are so caught up in their religion and what they're being taught that they don't tap into their spirituality and their ancestral wisdom and even the knowledge of the ancestors. That has been taken away from us. I strongly believe that if we are to utilize that, we would be unstoppable. And so the I Am Light Jamaica event was a combination of those two elements. The element of the light workers coming together, and then the element of bringing in the ancestral ceremonies on the day. So we're calling in the ancestors, and they are one and the same. The light and the ancestors are one and the same. The Africans call them the ancestors because they're the departed ones. But when they depart, what form do they take? They take the form of spirit or light. So when they say we call upon the ancestors, it's the same thing as when the Europeans are saying we call upon the light. It's the same thing. And so when we say I Am Light Jamaica, we're bringing the two together into a ceremony. And so we want to encourage everybody, wherever you are, if the I Am Light Jamaica concept resonates with you, you can go to the Wellness Experience Jamaica page on Instagram and sign up. Register to be part of the event because we are going to be streaming it online, and we're going to be gathering in person. We're going to be doing it at the Devon House, beautiful lawns of the Devon House, which historically is the house that belonged to the first Black millionaire in Jamaica. So that's powerful. Beautiful grounds, beautiful lawns, beautiful old trees that carry all this powerful energy. And we're going to be having a Taino ceremony. We're going to be having the Maroons also pouring libations. So we're bringing in the African and the Taino traditions in. And interestingly, we've also connected with another indigenous group out of Alaska who will make sure they're doing their ceremony at the same time as us. So we'll be connected by Zoom. So already, even just having the event, we've already sent out light vibrations. And where there is resonance, we have come together with other indigenous groups that understand power of the equinox and how the equinox is really an alignment with the central sun of the Pleiades, which is where we're getting all this powerful light from. So when we're calling in the light, it's the light from our sun and from the great central sun. It's powerful what's going to happen in 2022, because we're, just to digress a little, where our star system is right now, we're going through what they call a photon belt. So the light rays that are hitting our planet now have never hit our planet before. So we're getting in new and different light codes that are activating our DNA in a different way. So it is important for small bodies or small pockets of people who understand what we are talking about in terms of resonance, frequency, light, to just join in at this special moment on Sunday, March 20th. We're doing it from 8 a.m. to about 1 p.m. It's going to be like 4 hours. So come in. You can spend the whole 4 hours with us or just a little of the time. You know, the actual spring equinox is at about 11:33 our time. But we're going to tap into the 11:11 portal. So we're going to probably meditate from about 11 o'clock so that we hit that 11:11 portal and 11:33, and we'll probably end at about 11:45. So we'll be the silence. We'll all be visualizing, intentionally bringing in the light and anchoring the light into our bodies and into the light grid that exists on Mother Earth here in Jamaica. So we'd love to invite everyone to be a part of that. So Carol, you have to spread this among the
diaspora. Of course, because it's just so beautiful. Yeah.
It is beautiful, and we don't know why we're doing it, but we're doing it. But hey, here we are. We are our ancestors. We did this before, and we know that we have to be here again, and we have to do it again.
Yeah.
You know?
And also it brings back the because if you're looking at and seeing what all the turmoil and everything that's happening, it can look so dark. It can be like, what is it that we can do? And like you're saying, we don't have the platform, we don't have the manpower to do it like that. But what we do have and what we need to remember is that energetically, we're a force to be reckoned with. And this is the reason why our energy has been so targeted. Our mind, our consciousness has been so targeted. And unfortunately, for those that didn't catch on, we don't, like you say, we don't know what the effects of those inoculations have taken them. For some, it may have separated them from a level of consciousness that they may never rise past that again. We can't 100% be sure, but there's depending on what you got, but for those of us that didn't get caught in that web, like you say, it's incumbent upon us in order to use the energy and the awareness that we have of our role and our purpose and our duty to actually pull this time into a different space, into a different direction, because we need to start seeing the beauty of the world. And we've kind of missed that because we got pulled into the world and the trappings and the distractions. But when we get out of what we're able to create, like you say, in so many different ways, not only on the worldly plane, but on a spiritual plane and in a consciousness plane, when you start to think about what's possible if we get on board with that, that is exciting. So why do you not want to do this? Yeah.
Of course. And this is the thing. When we do what we do on that day, we know for a fact that we raise the resonance of everybody there, whether they participated or not.
Yeah.
We increase the resonance of the land as well and its ability to shine its light out into the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So this is why it's so important. So without doing anything, expending any energy, fighting anybody, we get the job done just through our consciousness and tapping into this powerful tool and this powerful technology called light.
Right.
Yeah. So yes.
It's been good. Wow. Such a powerful conversation. Thank you so much.
And a timely one. And I'd like to just thank you for also, coming in and understanding that your purpose is to talk about resonance, energetic resonance, and how important is it, and how important it is, because you are a soul on purpose. And so you, with your resonance, has magnetized me with my resonance, doing what I'm supposed to be doing in terms of soul purpose. And this is how you get validation that what you're doing is the right thing.
Right thing, yeah,
when
absolutely.
you meet other people that you can resonate with, and you realize that you are on the same exact journey. So you join the forces.
Yeah.
And I am of the strong belief that we are winning and we are going to win.
We wouldn't keep going otherwise.
We are winning.
Yeah. It might be a long road, but we keep going because living on purpose feels different. Yes. Even when things appear to be tricky, you know that you can steer back. And when you don't have that in your mind, that there is a purpose that is beyond you, to find that way and just stay online with that, beautiful things happen. But if you don't have that, then you can fall into these, depression, anxiety, just being lost and everything like that. And it's just a disconnect, that's what it is.
It's absolutely disconnection. They have nothing to stand on. There's nothing nourishing them.
Yeah.
But we are constantly being nourished by the light, by our connection to the divine. Keep on keeping on, Carol.
You too.
Keep up the great work that you're doing. It is going to get out there, and it's going to go to the people who need to hear it at the moment that they need to hear it.
Absolutely.
So yes, let's do it.
Thank you, Paula, for a beautiful and inspiring conversation, and thank you for listening. You can find out more about me on my website, which is carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com. On social media, I'm on Facebook under Carol May Whittick. On Instagram, you can find me at Kazmick, that's CAZMICK. And I'm just sprouting the buds of a Telegram channel, which is Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. If you just search in Telegram, Her Conversations. So until the next episode, look after yourself, stay strong, speak soon. Thank you.